Good afternoon and Happy New Year. What a way to start the year, huh? Just tremendous. Absolutely fantastic. Couldn't have imagined a better way to really... Mr. Mayor, how are you? Welcome. I'm not referring to the mayor here, but we told you the Thunderbird would be back, and here it is. What do you think about it? We're very proud of it. We're excited about it. We're biased, of course. We think it's beautiful, and it really does capture the essence and the heritage of the past while still offering the best in terms of materials and technologies of today and the future. And although we call this a design concept, everything here we could put into production, of course. And what I'd like to do is maybe go back into the history of Thunderbird a little bit before I introduce the man responsible for the design. We went back into the files a little bit, going back to 1954. This is an internal memorandum dated February 10th, 1954. And it's from L.D. Caruso to Ernie Breach. And it's interesting because the subject was sports car names. And it starts off by saying, you'll recall that very early in the search for a name to be given the new sports car, our original selection was Thunderbird. Of course, now we think of Thunderbird as just the essence of what America was about in the 50s and 60s. And they go on to say, at that time, you, Ernie Breach, indicated to us that we may try to find a better name. We have searched diligently for additional selections, only to find that many of them have been previously used and therefore were not available to us. Accordingly, we feel that the name Thunderbird is the best choice. And looking back on it now, some 40-odd years later, you've got to give them credit. It was a tremendous name and a tremendous heritage, and we're proud that we're part of the team that's going to carry it into the 21st century. What I'd like to do at this point is introduce the man responsible for the vehicle design, Jay Mays, Jay, and who's also happens to be the Ford Vice President for Design. Welcome, Jay.
Thank you.
We'll get over here and we don't want to miss the photo opportunity, Jay, at all. Well done.
Thank you,
Good luck.
Jack. Happy New Year, everyone. Thank you, Jack, and thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I've got to tell you before we get started here, there are few vehicles that I've ever worked on that have been as this much fun and had this much emotion wrapped around them. And I know I speak for the entire Thunderbird team when I tell you that this really isn't just redesigning a car. This is an American icon, and it's an awe-inspiring opportunity for anyone that works on it. In fact, redesign is absolutely the false word because you don't redesign a car like the Thunderbird. What you really do is you curate the heritage of all the great Thunderbirds that have come before it. When the Thunderbird was first introduced to the media in 1954, probably your moms and dads, what happened was there was a sleek line that reflected an unbridled optimism of the time. The Thunderbird had what car designers call that thing. That was love in a fender. It was dedication in the way the grille was made. That thing was deeply embedded in the American car culture. It made us feel great, it made us feel proud, and it made us feel alive. But as the years passed, the Thunderbird grew and evolved from a two-seat roadster to a two-door sedan to a four-door model that by the late 60s had moved far away from the character that we now associate as distinctly Thunderbird. And over the next 30 years, there were other great cars, but where they were once the norm, they were now the exception. So our mission, to pick up where we left off and march ahead. And so, a new Thunderbird. Round headlamps, egg crate grille, hood scoop, all wrapped in modern materials, all wrapped in modern technology, but distinctly Thunderbird. A small cabin for 2 people, and only 2 people, with its classic porthole window, moved slightly forward on the vehicle, anchored tightly by 18-inch wheels and tires, giving the car a thoroughly modern proportion and stance. And finally, at the rear of the vehicle, a low trailing edge, accented by what we in the design community call afterburner tail lamps. The only thing missing? A really nice piece of jewelry, and that's the Thunderbird emblem with an inset on each wing of turquoise. It's proudly displayed on the front of the vehicle, on the rear of the vehicle, and on the front fascia of the seats. Our goal certainly was to recapture the spirit of the original Thunderbird in an absolutely modern design. But more than that, our goal was to recapture that thing, that magical, heart-stopping, head-turning, intangible thing that few of us can describe, but every single one of us knows when we see it. We've seen it at Ford Motor Company, and now we'd like to ask you, the press, to come up and have another look. Thank you for coming today.
Ladies and gentlemen, we invite the media to take a closer look at the Thunderbird, where Jay and the rest of the Thunderbird team will entertain your questions.
Thank you.
I'm going to
Okay.
announce the 310.
See if Jack wants to come back up.
It'll be a first for Detroit, and
Yeah,
it's the start
sure.
of the 300-year
Okay.
celebration.
All right.
Yeah. It's Jennifer's
Okay.
idea, it wasn't mine. Yeah. All right.
Why don't we
great.
get a couple of shots with the car then?
Okay, how are you? Yeah.
So when
I've got to leave.
when are you going to produce it?
Pretty soon. Pretty soon.
It's not a really.
Hi, Ty. How are you? Yeah. Thanks for the note. It was very nice.
Sorry.
You
Go
wrote it, so.
We haven't announced it yet, but as Jack
we'd
said, everything in the
rather
car
not
is
say at this
100%
point, but
feasible.
very
So should we make the decision to get into production, we're ready. Not going to speculate on it.
Until
I'll
it's
let
a
you do that.
production vehicle. So.
Hi.
Steve, how are you? Happy
How are
New Year.
you? Pleased to meet you.
Keith?
Two-seater, or is there a back seat at all?
No, it's a strictly 2-seater,
Not in
and
our
the back seat has enough room for a small piece of luggage, briefcase, tote sack, something like that.
Who's the target market for these? Who are you selling?
I'd rather
Doug,
wait
come on up.
until we're closer to production. But I think this is a vehicle, as you can tell from the history going back to 54.
Shortened to
I
98.
think
The
it's a
engine
vehicle
is
that
the
will
V8.
really
In fact, Doug, why don't
span,
you go through that with them?
many different